Hi everyone, welcome to another drawing tutorial with UdoCreatives. In this video, I will share various tools and techniques that I use as a pencil artist. I will also do some demonstrations as a way to make it easier to follow and understand. To see how the eyes, mouth and ear displayed here were drawn, check the description or search the videos on my YouTube page. Thank you. Okay, back to the tutorial. The first tools I will be starting with are my carbon pencils. Now you might be wondering what I use these pencils for. The simple answer is, I use my carbon pencils for outlines. Over here I have a 2B carbon pencil. I have a B grade carbon pencil. I have a 4B carbon pencil. And I have a 6B carbon pencil. All these pencils are used for outlines. So let's start with this ear. For dark areas like this, I use the carbon pencil for my outlines. For the lip study, I used my carbon pencil to create this depth. For the eye drawing, I used the carbon pencil for these outlines. I also used it for the eyelashes and for the eyebrows. A random thing that I like about the carbon pencil is that it works well alongside charcoal pencils. Now the second material in my pencil arsenal that I will be showing you is the Conté Paris charcoal pencil. I love this pencil so much because of its dark charcoal. It's very dark and very subtle. For me, it is a great tool for blending into the paper. It's very effective. I usually use this tool for creating shadows. If you look at this eye drawing, I used the Conté Paris charcoal pencil to draw this particular eyeball. Also used it to create these dark edges here. If you look at this lip drawing, after I blended the edges of the lip, I used the Conté Paris to shade more on them. I also used Conté Paris for this ear. The shadow beneath the ear was done with the Conté Paris charcoal pencil. That is the Conté Paris charcoal pencil. The next tool that I have here is my Polychromos colored pencil. These are colored pencils from Faber-Castell. The first one here is my 1 Grey 1 Polychromos colored pencil. I use this for adding details on my pencil drawings and also for shading light areas. The second one is my 1 Grey 3 Polychromos colored pencil. I also use this color pencil to add details. The third one I have here is my favorite one, the Polychromos black colored pencil. This here is a color pencil from Naturage that I use for shading, just like my Polychromos colored pencil. I also have this particular color pencil from Master Art. It's a 1 Grey 5 Polychromos colored pencil. I use colored pencils for my detailing. Once in a while, I will also use them for shading if I need to add color pencil effects to a drawing. But I don't often do that. The next pencil is my Faber-Castell 9000 graphite pencil. So I use these pencils for sketching, for shading, to add details. I use these pencils for all of them. They are regular pencils that you can get in any art store. I like using my 3H pencil for outlines and 6B to shade that area. As you can see, it's very dark. So let me try and demonstrate it for you. This is the 6B 9000 Polychromo graphite. This is the H graphite. As you can see, these pencils come in different grades. This is the H pencil. This is the 6B and this is the 6H. As you can see, there is a difference in the tones. The next material is my charcoal white pencil. I use it to add details like this to my pencil drawing. Although I didn't use it for this particular pencil drawing. I generally use the charcoal white for creating highlights. Over here is my pencil eraser that I use for adding details to my pencil drawing. This pencil eraser is one of my most cherished pencils in my arsenal. I love this pencil because I can add precise details with this pencil. I use this pencil a lot. This here is also a charcoal white pencil that I use for adding highlights to my pencil drawing. From Generous. The next tool is my Tombow Mono Zero eraser. I use this eraser for adding highlights and details to my pencil drawing. One example is that I use it for drawing hair strands. Next is my blending stump. The blending stump is a very interesting tool for pencil drawing. Different artists use them for blending, for sketching, and for adding details. You can use your blending stump to create textures on your paper. As you can see, I'm using my blending stump to create some dots right now on the paper. For some of my advanced pencil drawings, I use my blending stump a lot to create skin textures. Over here is my pencil sharpener from Notroj. That is for sharpening my pencils when they get blunt. Now, over here is my Jacka compressed charcoal set that I use for shading. It gives me a certain kind of tone on the paper that makes it look glossy. It gives a glossy effect. I use this set for all my pencil drawings. To use the compressed charcoal, I carefully use a blade to scrape some on the paper. For kids, please do not handle a blade without adult supervision. After this, I use my brush to pick the charcoal bits and I shade them on. Now, on to brushes. Brushes are one of the essentials of pencil drawing and realism. You need good brushes. We'll be starting with my favorite brush, the hog bristle brush. This brush is very hard and it blends charcoal well into the tooth of my paper. So, I use this brush for blending charcoal. So, let's do a quick sample. This is a knife that I use for scraping compressed charcoal into a piece of paper. So, using this knife, I'm going to scrape some black compressed charcoal. Using my hard brush, I'll take some black compressed charcoal and try to blend it into the paper. So, as you can see, the bristle brush blends charcoal into the tooth of the paper. This brush is extremely effective for blending any tone of charcoal. For a comparison, I'm going to use a soft brush to blend charcoal so you can see the difference. This is a soft brush. By using a soft brush to blend charcoal, you see that it's not as dark as the bristle brush. So, when it comes to blending dark charcoal, my preference is definitely the bristle brush. It's the right brush for blending dark charcoal. On the other hand, softer brushes tend to perform well with blending lighter charcoal. A soft brush is typically my go-to for blending light gray compressed charcoal. Here's a demonstration. As you can see, the soft brush is very good at blending light gray compressed charcoal in a pencil drawing. I'm going to use the other soft brushes I have to demonstrate blending more light gray compressed charcoal. The reason why a soft brush is perfect for blending this particular shade of charcoal is because the charcoal itself is pretty soft and powdery. For this particular compressed charcoal set, I have noticed that the lighter tone charcoal bars are softer and powdery. This powdery nature reduces as we move up in darkness. For example, as you can see, if I take the light gray compressed charcoal and I take the dark gray compressed charcoal, the difference between the two of them is that this one is much softer. I will demonstrate using a bristle brush as well. As you can see, there's a strong difference in results. This was done with my hog bristle brush, while this one was done with my soft brush. As a rule of thumb for my pencil drawings, I like to use my bristle brush to blend dark areas, and I like to use my soft brush to blend lighter areas. Try this technique out with multiple shades of charcoal to see how they work with your brush selection. Now, let's talk about these brushes. I have the ends cut off on these brushes. I did that to make the brushes a tiny bit harder. As a result of this, I now have a wider range of soft and hard brushes. This gives me more freedom with my shading. The cut brushes are also very good for blending charcoal. As you can see, I'm shading with it right now. It goes straight into the paper. This is some light gray. As you can see, it blends really well. Essentially, what I have done here is create a soft brush that also works great for shading light compressed charcoal. Now, this particular brush would be considered a hard brush. Looking at both of these brushes, you'll notice that one has longer bristles and the other has really short bristles in comparison. So, when I want my brush to be soft and rigid, I cut the tip without going deep. The deeper I go when I cut my brush, the harder it gets. The bristles for this brush were originally this long. But because I cut the tip of my brush to this extent, it became pretty hard. If I had cut this brush to this extent, the brush will be much harder. On the other hand, if I had cut it at the top here, it has less of an effect on the hardness. It's the same basic principle here also. I cut both these brushes this way so that they will no longer be soft brushes. Even though they came as soft brushes, they are now hard brushes. One advantage of hard brushes is that they reduce mess when working with charcoal. Charcoal can be a very messy material to work with. It needs something strong to make it blend effectively to your paper. In my experience, using hard brushes give you way more control over the charcoal than soft brushes. Let's start talking about techniques for achieving realism in our works. We'll start with shading. When it comes to shading for realistic drawings, the technique I personally work with is layering. I work in stages. If I want to shade something this dark, I build my tones gradually. So, I start with shading with something like this. A mid-gray compressed charcoal. Then I move to something like this and then I step here. The reason is because layering gives your work a rich look. As an artist, I work with layering. All of my pencil drawings are done with layering. For example, if I want to go this dark on my pencil drawing, I don't just scrape my compressed charcoal onto the paper, and then just take my brush and start shading. Personally, this technique feels very wrong to me. As an artist, I don't do this. What I do instead is slowly build up layers. So, for my first step, I take my hard brush and I shade. Then, I take my mid-gray compressed charcoal. Then I take my black compressed charcoal. This is how I work. I build layers. I start with the lightest layer to the middle layer, and then to the darkest layer. I build layers a lot. Think of layering as the basis of pencil drawing. The next technique I will show is a way of shading where the layering is done differently from before. I actually learned it from another artist named Arins. This technique involves using graphite to make your first layer before going ahead to use charcoal for your pencil drawing. I'll start by using my blade to carefully chip away my pencil to expose the graphite. I will then scrape some of that graphite on my paper. Next, take a soft brush and use it to create your first layer. So your first layer is a graphite base. And then, using the bristle brush, take some black compressed charcoal and shade. As you can see, these are two different methods of shading hyper-realistic or realistic pencil drawings. The first method is to build layers using your compressed charcoal set, while the second is to use graphite to create your layer, then use charcoal. Personally, I prefer the first method, but I urge you to experiment with both techniques to find out which one works for you. Now let's discuss texturing. In my opinion, texturing is a skill that is difficult to teach. The reason is because texturing is based on individual interpretation of subjects. The chances are that the way I see a texture is different from the way you see a texture. One simple way to get started on texturing is to use your mono-zero to create some dots. You dab into your paper with your mono-zero. After this, I use my pencil to draw semicircles at the back. This is one of the texturing methods that I have learned and developed over the years. Pay close attention. I'm going to show you how one of these semicircles looks like. I'm sure you can see how it resembles a slight fold, like a dot that's coming out of the paper. I will now enlarge it to make it clearer. That is the enlarged look. I usually draw a lot of these dots on my pencil drawing to give it a hyper-realistic look. Now, when it comes to detailing, This is learned through self-experimentation, as a certain method of detailing might work for some subjects but not others. The aim of detailing is to get as close to the tonal resemblance of your reference or guide as possible. For this to happen, you need to apply your understanding of shading into making more precise changes to your work. For beginners mostly, I personally feel like if you can shade well and if you can outline well, detailing won't be a problem. It will all depend on how precise you want your pencil drawing to be. If you check out our other tutorial videos, you will see that it was my ability to shade well that brought out the realism, as opposed to the detailing. Now, let's discuss the foundation of drawing realistic art. By foundation, I mean the ability to make something flat look 3D. For example, this is a box. Let's do some simple shading on this box to see if it will look a bit more three-dimensional vs flat. Notice how the shading gives a 3D effect on the box. Also, based on this shading, we have now stepped into another very important aspect of pencil drawing. And that is the power of tones and tonal gradation. Tonal gradation simply refers to the transition from light to dark. Tonal gradation is the basis of shading. If you can understand tonal gradation well, you'll be a very, very good artist. When it comes to making anything look realistic, you have to learn to be able to use your tonal gradation well. For every pencil drawing to look 3D, there must be this transition. This transition is what manipulates something flat into looking three-dimensional. It basically gives an illusionary effect. So guys, that's all for the tools and technique crash course. Let's quickly have a recap of what we covered. We covered how I use essential materials like pencils, charcoal and brushes, and what I use them for. We also touched on techniques and terms such as blending, shading, detailing, and tonal gradation. Recall that my preferred shading technique is layering using charcoal powder. Thank you so much for taking your time to watch this tools and techniques tutorial. I hope you've improved at least a little bit on how to draw using graphite pencils and charcoal powder. I also hope that you've gained insightful techniques in this tutorial, and I hope to see you use these techniques in your drawings. Thank you very much for watching. Please like this video and subscribe to UdoCreatives for more art content.